Welcome to OSLC Connect for Jira training. I'm Robert Belarjan. Welcome to our Jira admin scheme configuration training session. Our intention here is to be able to talk about how you can configure Jira to interact in the OSLC world the way that you want, especially with the IBM ELM tools, and show you what configuration options that you have. Really the goal of scheme configuration is to customize your behavior. Oftentimes it's around process and how the IBM ELM tools will naturally work with your Jira projects and your schemes that you've configured for your teams. And we do configurations at the scheme level because that's oftentimes where we instill process. It's where our Jira workflows are defined and the way our users and our admins expect to have this happen. Especially when we have hundreds of projects, it's much easier to have a couple schemes that we're managing, and it makes it a lot easier for our admins and the Jira side to have consistent behavior and structure how we operate. So over the years, as we've been operating with this tool, we keep adding some additional configurations. I'll try to walk you through each of those and why they make sense and what we're trying to accomplish there. From the very basic, like the issue type, so that when you come from ELM, you're getting the type of artifact you expect. Down through some of the link decorators that give you kind of a feel of how an artifact might look. But with that, we'll kind of walk through, we'll show you before and after how this configuration changes the way you might operate. This is an advanced thing that you might do after you've done initial configuration to your friends and project associations, and you ask that question, how can I make this easier on our users? And that's really our goal here. So let's show it live. And so let's start off with something simple, which is issue types. And so a couple things here. We have our configurations. Scheme level configurations are going to happen in the add-ons side of our equation here under OSLC Connect. And so we've dealt with the friends and consumers already. So let's go ahead and take a look at something like issue type mapping and how this operates. So as I said, it's a scheme level. Right now I have my training project its own scheme. Oftentimes we're going to have a scheme that covers multiple projects, but this gives you a sense of this. So the issue type mapping, the point of this is to relate how your specific Jira project is operating. We know you all have your own separate types, and you want to be able to relate it to the types of behaviors that you're going to do within the ELM world. So if you want to be able to create a change request, what artifact type do you want to create? If you want to create a defect, if you want to create an implementation request, how do I customize that? And so the default behavior will just be typically just your default type within Jira. So in this case, this project is actually, or the scheme is actually configured for a bug. So if I went over to DNG right now and operated, and I went to create an implemented by link, I'm going to add this link. If I go to say create new, it's going to default to this bug. Now this is not how I want this to operate. I want to actually have some more capability to be able to structure how this behaves. And I know that when somebody goes to create that, they're not going to want to change off a bug. So the idea here is that I can have my Jira tool tell it specifically which type I want to do. So in this case, maybe I want to customize an implementation request to an epic. I can do a requirements change request to maybe a task and a defect. Well, some bugs probably appropriate there. I'll just go ahead and define that. And I can save that configuration. Now, whenever I'm in my ELM world and I go to create a relationship, it's going to utilize that information for me. So in this case, the next time I'm in Doors Next and I go to create a new link, an implementation link, and I say I want to create new, you'll be able to see that I automatically configure that to be an epic. The same would be true if I was in ETM and I went to create a defect, it would create a bug. And you'll see later on when I go to do a change request, a requirements change request, it's going to default to that task that I wanted to create. So it gives you the ability to be able to customize whatever types that you're using within your Jira system will be available to you, and allows a very simple way to be able to operate. The next part that I want to do is configure at the schema level how the world looks outside, meaning from Jira to the ELM world or any OSLC tool in general. How do I want it to interact? So when we did the project association, you saw a few link type configurations. I've actually added some more project associations now. So now when I go to create a link from an artifact, so this is just a simple task here, and I want to create a collaboration link. What you're going to see when I click on this link types, you're going to see a whole list of different link type relationships I can create. Oftentimes this is a bit overwhelming. You don't necessarily want to be able to allow everybody to create every link type from every Jira issue type. So how do you want to control that, and what capabilities do you want to provide? And so that's the goal here. So when we look at something like link type mapping, that's exactly what we're talking about. What we want to do is go one step farther, which is to be able to say, how do I want to have each of my Jira issues interact with OSLC links? And so we'll focus on the task to begin with. So you saw that I had all those link relationships I could do. So there's a few things I can do. Very basically, I might be able to say, hey, I want to customize what default link do I always want to create. So maybe I want to always create a related change request from a task. What this is going to do is when I first go to create an artifact from a task, it's going to default to that type. So that makes it just default. That's what engineers are going to see. That's going to tend to be what they use. Now, the other part that we want to be able to do is, hey, maybe I don't want to actually allow all those different relationship types. Maybe I want to only have a few of those. So in this case, these are all the different OSLC link types that we can have. There's even a few that we didn't have an architecture management relationship there, so that's why we didn't see that link type there. But I can disable all those. You'll see that it's going to always keep my related change request because I force that to. But I also can control whether or not I allow creation. So in this case, I'm going to say for tracks, I want to allow the select artifact. Maybe I want to just allow selection of requirements on tasks. Actually, let's not do implements. Let's just do tracks. I can go ahead and force those types of relationships and be able to do that. So if I save this, what I've done now is I pared down the types of relationships I allow so that the next time that I come in here, let's go ahead and refresh this, make sure that we have the latest information. When I go in here and say create a link and go to do a collaboration link, you're going to see that I defaulted that related change request and my options are now much, much smaller. So in case I want to create a relationship to tracks, you're going to see that I only can create a links to existing. I can't create a new artifact even though OSLC allows it. Here I'm going to do some process customization that makes that a little bit more effective for me. So that gives you kind of a sense in terms of how we can better control that structure and control how we might link and how we create relationships. And like I said, some of these will allow us to be able to create new ones if we want. So if I actually switch back to related change request, and after I log in, it's going to be able to say that I can get those other options. So I can do lots of different things to be able to structure the process, which I think is very, very useful. So that gets us through issue type mapping and link type mapping. So it gives you a lot of customizations there. One of the things that we knew was important for workflows was to be able to take a look at how we use that OSLC data. So in this case, let's actually switch over to our Epic, and we can take a look at this because there's some interesting things here. So this artifact's still in this to-do state, and I can allow myself and have the ability to create validators within Jira. So basically, these are making sure that before I do any transition to a particular state, in this case, before I transition to in progress, what do I want to prove out to be true? And so I'm going to show you a validator that we have right now. This is a validator that's just by default within our system. It's using those OSLC relationships. So in this case, if the implementation requirements link is there, we want to be able to make sure at least one of the artifacts there is approved for us to be able to go in progress. It's kind of arbitrary on what that definition is. But that's really the intention here, is to be able to make sure that that information is live and make sure that our interaction, our links are not just there as decoration, but indeed they're actually there to be able to provide us in more value in terms of the system. And so in this case, if I try to go ahead and move in progress, that validator is going to operate and it's going to tell me, oh my gosh, you don't have any of these things approved. Within OSLC, I could have done a rich hover across these artifacts and been able to assess some information about that and be able to say, okay, which of these could have been approved? This one, I think, is actually the one that has a status of in process. And we could change that value and be able to move forward. But when we added these validators, which I think are important, we also realized that it was important to be able to have some more visual indicators of the state of things, because that's oftentimes the types of things that we're going to validate on. So one of the things that we added here was link appearance. And what we're going to show here is priority and status that we can control. We can control these things and be able to provide textual information about what they should look like so they're visual. We can do things like even change these so we're actually using an icon instead of necessarily a textual description. We can add some color. All those things allows us to be able to have a better visualization of how those systems operate. So in this case, if I had that visualization, I wouldn't necessarily had to see that validator warning for me because when I looked at this issue to begin with, I'm going to have those decorators on there that's telling me this is in process. It's not actually in a editable or in an approved state yet, so that validator is going to block me. So it shouldn't be any surprise that when I say go in progress, it actually is going to prevent me and provide me a description of why it can't. And in fact, if I want to open this artifact and navigate to it, I can go ahead and navigate to it, be able to go ahead and approve it, and then we'll be able to see that visual indication, and then that validator is going to operate for us. And so if I look at this guy, I can go ahead and edit this. Nice thing, I was able to navigate directly over to it. I can go ahead and let's approve this, not reject it. Done. And the next time I come and view this artifact, if I do a refresh on here, you'll be able to see that it will go dynamically pull that status. That status is approved. Now if I go in progress, that validator is going to be successful, and I can actually move to that in progress state. So the combination of that validator, which enforces our process, and those link decorators, which provide some visual identification of something that makes it so I'm tempted to be able to go make changes before I run into those validators, are a good combination to help us structure that flow and be able to make sure that our process is actually enforced. And that's really what we're trying to do with that scheme level configuration. A couple other things to be able to point out that are, I think, unique to the IBM ELM tools. One of which is, we'll get in here, and which is approvals. So if I actually look at some configurations of streams in DNG, there is options here to be able to enforce process. And on the details is on a stream, I could force it to be able to have a change set. I can force it also that this item must be approved to be able to deliver to the change set. And that's going to change some behaviors for me. So let's first of all look at what that forces to me right now. So if I take a look at DNG after being able to make that change, it's going to give me some warnings that's going to tell me I need to have a change set and a change request to be able to do some work. So let's do both of those things. And so on here, I can be able to create a change set. So this is just a sample change set that I can do all my work in. And I can take advantage of that information. And not only can I create that change set, now I can also associate this to a work item. And that work item doesn't have to be just an EWM item. This can be a Jira item as well. So in this case, let's do sample Jira approval item. So it defaulted to a task because that's what I told it to do on the change request. So I can create that new artifact here. And you'll be able to see that relationship to that artifact right here. What you'll also see now, we can go ahead and make some changes here. Let's do here. I meant new change. And when I go to actually deliver this change, what it's going to do, this change set must be approved. And so there's lots of, we have that relation to the change set. It's using that Jira issue to be able to assess approval. What does approved mean in Jira? And so that's what we have here in the configuration as well. If we can look at issue approvals here, oftentimes I'll use a pretty simple configuration. So right now, I have no strategy, meaning that these are never going to show up as being approved. I can do a basic strategy, which is basically saying as long as that work item is done, I can go ahead and say that's approved. I can also create some advanced strategy, meaning I can use some JQL statement to be able to say, when I have these properties exist, then this is approval. This can be status being done, which is obviously what our basic configuration is, or it can be something more complex. So I'm going to go ahead and save this simple configuration saying, hey, as long as I'm done, I'm going to have this be approved. And so if I went back over to DNG and took a look at this artifact, so I can clear that item out. I can take a look at my Jira item. I can open that new tab here, because now I can look at this artifact. You'll see my link back to that change set. I can also, let's go ahead and make this done. This item's now done. It also means that now when I go ahead and start my deliver process, it's going to assess that. It's going to say that that's approved. And that could be any complex relationship I want to describe in JQL. It just gives you a lot of freedom to be able to add those next level of process controls using Jira as your review to be able to make sure that you actually have approved those change sets and being able to make sure that those are the artifacts that you want to have. So lots of flexibility and power in there to be able to make sure that you can enforce process. And then lo and behold, on your artifacts over here in Jira, you are always able to get to that change set and see what artifacts are contained within it. Once you've actually delivered that change set, you're going to actually see that change set shows delivered within Jira, and you can navigate over and be able to see that change set over here within Doors Next, and it'll show you what changes are contained within it and what change resources are in it. So a lot of power to be able to use DNG in conjunction with Jira to be able to see what changes made and how you actually can control the process. Now, the last two things that I'm going to talk about, and it's going to be very brief, are issue shapes and issue previews. Let's go ahead and do issue previews first. We do have, when we're talking about from Doors Next, if I do this rich hover, I'm going to be able to see a preview of information. This is just our default standard preview of information that we have. If you have a lot of custom fields, you can go ahead and customize what you want to include on those presentations. So in this case, if you wanted to be able to say, you can customize what a epic or what a task would look like. You can pick from any of your screens that you have defined within your projects. You might be able to say, hey, I want to be able to use a specific type of screen and configuration. So that way you can pick whatever screen or content that you want to be able to include, and be able to force it to be able to use a particular screen. And each of your types can use a different screen to be able to control what custom attributes you might include on there. And then the other place that you're going to want to look at for some of the advanced configurations is on the issue shapes. What issue shapes are is describing what information is made available to reporting. So in this case, if I want to go into my scheme and make some custom fields available in reporting, I can. So if I had something like a begin date as a custom field, I could add that and make sure that that information is available for reporting within Report Builder and Engineering Insights. So it's the ability to be able to customize and save that information and be able to make sure that your custom information in Jira is available for reporting. So a balance there, a lot of kind of process focus in terms of the configurations you can do, but also some elements on the visualization or the reporting side to be able to control some content that's in there. I didn't go into depth on every single detail, but hopefully it gives you a sense in terms of what might be possible, and encourage you to go explore the abilities to be able to do within these. And just a little hint on any of these items, we always have some help guidance that will drive you to our help contents to be able to see some more details about things like issue shapes. You'll see that there. That's on all of our fields. So take advantage of that to be able to see what's there. If you have more questions, just contact our support team. We're happy to be able to make sure that you have the information you need to make your team successful. Thank you very much.